The rain on Route 219 wasn't falling. It was attacking. Horizontal, icy sheets that turned my windshield into a strobe light of distorted pavement. I was 18 hours into a brutal push from Spokane to Denver hauling electrical components. My eyes burned, and the coffee had stopped working. That's when I saw the taillights. Not the bright red of brakes, but the weak, blinking amber of hazards. A sedan was angled on the narrow shoulder, a figure hunched beside it. Rule number 1. Never stop. My foot hovered. Then my high beams caught her. A young woman, couldn't be over 25, soaked to the bone, shivering so hard I saw it from 50 yards. She looked right at me, her mouth forming the words, "Please help." I saw my daughter's face. I pulled over. Her name was Clara. Her car had just died. No phone service. I did the routine, jumper cables, checking terminals. The engine was cold and silent. Not a click. The battery terminals were spotless. Too clean. "Let's get you warm," I said, against every screaming instinct. I led her to my passenger seat, blasting the heat. She thanked me, a small, weak sound. As we pulled onto the dark highway, the first oddity hit. "You're very kind," she said, but her voice was flat, like she was reading a card. I asked where she was headed. "Just away," she said, staring ahead. The cab, once my sanctuary, now felt like a cage with a strange, damp animal. The smell hit me next. Not wet clothes, but the scent of ozone and wet soil, like a hole dug in a storm. An hour in, the CB crackled with a voice I didn't know. "Eastbound rig with the green trailer, you got a shadow riding with you." I keyed the mic, "Say again." Static. Clara didn't react. I glanced at her. In the green glow of the dash, her profile was perfect. Still. Too still. She wasn't blinking. I counted. 30 seconds. A minute. "Clara?" She turned her head slowly, smoothly, like a machine. "Yes, Mike?" I hadn't told her my name. My blood turned to ice. "How'd you know my name?" She smiled, a movement of lips only. "It's on your logbook." It was on the clipboard between us. I forced a laugh. The tension was a live wire. Then she asked for water. I handed her my bottle. She didn't drink. She held it, staring at the condensation. "He didn't offer me water," she whispered. "Who?" "The other driver. 5 years ago, on this same road. His name was Ben." Her tone was conversational, chilling. I knew then. I'd broken the rule, and now I was in a story I didn't understand. The GPS flickered. The ETA vanished, replaced by spinning dashes. My phone died. The digital clock on the dash began rolling backwards. Clara started humming. A tuneless, grating sound. "He left me by the road," she said. "My car died just like tonight. He said he'd get help. He never came back." I pushed the rig harder, desperate for the next truck stop's lights. In the mirror, I saw my trailer. The security seal was intact. But something was wrong. The trailer's shadow on the wet road. It was the wrong shape. It wasn't a box. It was the long, low shadow of a sedan. The storm peaked. White-out conditions. I had to crawl. Clara's story spilled out in fragments. Then, promise. A betrayal. Hypothermia. A shallow grave. Her words wrapped around me. The heater was on max, but my breath fogged the air. Frost crept up the inside of my windshield. "I just want to go home," she cried. And for a second, she was just a scared kid again. Then her face changed. "But home is gone. So I wait. I wait for someone kind like you to stop." Her eyes turned fully black in the dashboard light. "To keep me company." The truck lurched. A warning light. Rear axle temperature critical. Impossible. I pulled over at a deserted scenic overlook. "Stay here," I commanded, voice trembling. I stepped into the blizzard. The cold was absolute. I trudged to the back. My trailer doors were slightly ajar. I saw the padlock, still locked, but the doors were open an inch. A frozen, black gap. I pulled a flashlight. I looked inside. It wasn't my load of electrical components. It was a forest. A frozen, dead pine forest, dusted with snow. stretching into impossible darkness inside the trailer. And parked in the center, gleaming under my flashlight, was a rusted sedan. Clara's car. A scream tore from my throat. I stumbled back, falling into the snow. I looked up at my cab. Clara was in the driver's seat. She looked down at me, her head cocked. She raised a hand and waved slowly. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I didn't think. I ran to the passenger side, yanked the door open, and grabbed my tire iron from the floor. She was gone. The cab was empty, cold as a tomb. The engine was dead. I jumped in, praying. The starter whined, caught. I didn't look back. I drove, sobbing, for an hour until I saw the glow of a 24-hour gas station. The police were skeptical. A missing persons case? Clara? They ran the name. Clara Mitchell. Reported missing 5 years ago, last seen on Route 219. Her car was found a month later in a ravine, 50 miles from where I stopped. No body. The officer, a tired-looking veteran, put a hand on my shoulder. Son, you had a hallucination. Fatigue. Stress. The storm. He handed me a card for a therapist. I took it, but back at my rig, as they prepared to tow it for a mechanical check, a statty pointed at my trailer. You hauling ice sculptures? He shined his light. On the outside of the rear doors, written in a thick layer of pristine frost, were 2 words. Thank you. The padlock was frozen shut at -20 degrees. Inside, my electrical components were perfectly normal. I never drove that route again. I sold my rig and took a job dispatching. But sometimes, on quiet nights, I'll monitor the CB traffic for Route 219. Every few months, a call comes in. A driver, voice shaky, reporting a stranded motorist, a young woman named Clara. We always send a patrol car. They never find her. They just find tire marks on the shoulder and the lingering smell of ozone and wet soil. But a Phantom Hitchhiker was the least of this next driver's problems, because his threat wasn't supernatural. It was human, and it was talking to him on the CB. The desert on I-10 at 3 a.m. is a sensory deprivation tank. Just you, the humming tires, and the stars watching with cold indifference. I was hauling pharmaceuticals from El Paso to LA, a high-value, high-security load. The only break in the monotony was the CB, a river of trucker chatter on Channel 19. That's when I first heard him. A voice cutting through the static, clear as a bell. Not the usual gravelly drawl, but smooth, almost melodic. Southbound Peterbilt with the sleek nose, you copy? That was me. I keyed the mic, go for Midnight Runner. Just admiring your rig. She's a beauty. Running light and fast tonight. A chill, unrelated to the AC, went down my spine. How did he know I was running light? My trailer was a generic white box. Thanks, I replied, cautious. What's your 20? Oh, I'm right behind you. I checked my mirrors. Nothing but blackness. Don't see you. His laugh was soft. Look closer. That began the game. Over the next 100 miles, Sam, that's what he told me to call him, narrated my drive. You're tapping your fingers on the wheel. Tired. You just passed a green mile marker 114. Your left trailer tire is looking a little low. Might want to check it at the next stop. I pulled over at a desolate rest area. The tire was fine, but as I walked around my rig, my skin crawled. Under my driver's side door, placed neatly on the asphalt, was a fresh cigarette butt. My brand. I don't smoke. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting the dark. Empty parking lot. The voice came from my own cab's radio. Told you. He was in my frequency, my space. I scrambled inside, locked the doors. My hands shook. This wasn't a prank. This was hunting. He started sharing details. Your wife's name is Angela. She's a nurse. You have a dog, a golden retriever named Duke. You worry about him being alone. My blood froze. This was personal. I grabbed my company satellite phone. No signal. Jammed. The CB was my only link to the world, and he owned it. Why are you doing this? I transmitted, trying to keep the panic from my voice. I'm lonely, Sam replied. And you have something I need. Pull over at the next exit. Let's talk face to face. Refuse and I start calling Angela. I have her number. I know her shift ends at 7 a.m. It was a threat wrapped in silk. He knew my route, my life, my fears. He was a ghost in the machine and he was hurting me. He directed me off the interstate onto a crumbling service road, promising he'd leave me alone if I just listened. There's an old grain silo, silo 7. Park under it. Get out. Leave the keys. I was in a nightmare, compliant. The silo loomed against the starry sky, a decaying monolith. I pulled in, killed the engine. The silence was deafening. I got out, keys in hand. Place them on the bumper, Sam's voice ordered from my still-open cab. I did it. A figure detached from the silo's shadow. Tall, wearing a dark hoodie. He walked toward my trailer, not me. He was after the load. This was a hijacking. But as he passed my cab, the interior light illuminated his face for a split second. Young, clean-cut, smiling. He winked at me, then headlights. 2 sets, roaring down the service road. Not patrol cars. 2 pickups. Sam's smile vanished. You called friends? He hissed into a handheld radio. I hadn't. The pickups skidded to a halt. 4 men jumped out, armed with pipes and a shotgun. A rival crew? This was a setup within a setup. Sam dove for cover. Chaos erupted. I didn't wait. I sprinted into the desert, away from the trucks, the violence, the voice. I ran until my lungs burned, then hid in a shallow wash. I could hear shouts, a gunshot, then engines speeding away. An hour later, creeping back, my rig was alone. The keys were still on the bumper. My trailer doors were open, empty. They'd taken everything. But on the driver's seat, placed neatly, was a CB radio. A handwritten note taped to it. You're a good listener. Until next time. Sam. The police investigation went nowhere. The satellite phone jamming was sophisticated. The Sam voice was a distorted digital file, likely broadcast from a repeater truck nearby. They found the rival crew, local thieves, but they swore a voice on the radio had tipped them off about a score. 2. They'd been played as well. The pharmaceutical company fired me. Angela left, terrified. I lost everything. But the story isn't over. I drive a dump truck for a local company now. No more long haul. Last week, my new CB crackled in the yard. A smooth, melodic voice. Hello, old friend. Miss me? I ripped the wiring out with my bare hands. I still wake up hearing it. Because out there, someone built a better mousetrap for truckers. And he's still on Channel 19 waiting for his next midnight runner. Our third story takes us from the digital terror of the CB to a place off the map, where time itself doesn't work right. Where a warm meal was the price of admission, to a loop you might never escape. Blizzards in Wyoming don't play fair. 1 minute you're on I-80, the next you're in a white void, fighting for your life. That's what happened to me. Whiteout conditions. I took an exit, any exit, just to get off the lethal highway. My GPS said Route 17. My map showed no such road. But there were tire tracks, so I followed them into a tunnel of howling snow and pine trees. An hour later, lost and nearly out of fuel, I saw it. A soft, buttery glow. A diner. The eat sign flickered. The dead. The parking lot was empty except for 2 feet of snow. It was a miracle. Parked, staggered inside. The warmth hit me first, then the smell of coffee and grease. It was a classic 70s diner, vinyl booths, a jukebox, a counter with stools. A waitress named Flo, name tag and all, smiled. Sit anywhere, sugar. Bad night to be out. There was one other customer, an old man in a booth, staring into his coffee. I ordered the special. The radio behind the counter played static, then a snippet of a news report about the 1973 oil crisis, then static again. I chalked it up to a bad signal. The food came. It was hot, tasteless, but filling. I felt my eyes grow heavy. Where's your restroom? I asked. Flo pointed to a hallway. Don't be long, she said, her smile fixed. That should have been my warning. In the restroom, the mirror was cracked. The soap dispenser was empty, covered in a layer of dust. The paper towel roll was brittle and used for years. My unease grew. I returned to my booth. My plate was gone. My coffee was full, steaming, as if freshly poured. I looked at the clock over the grill. It was stuck at 11:59. The old man was still staring into his coffee, in the exact same position. "Flo," I called. She appeared instantly from the kitchen, smiling. "Ready for your check, hon?" I hadn't asked for it. I paid with cash. She took the bill, didn't give change. "You have a safe trip now," she said, her eyes locked on mine. They were glassy, like a doll's. I went outside. The snow had stopped. My truck was there, but the snow around it was pristine. No footprints from my entrance. The wind was gone. The silence was absolute. I got in my cab. The engine turned over too easily. I followed my tire tracks back the way I came. 10 minutes later, the diner's glow appeared ahead of me. I'd driven in a circle. My fuel gauge hadn't moved. I tried again, taking a different fork. 20 minutes later, the same flickering eat sign. Panic set in. I was trapped. I marched back into the diner. The bell jingled. Flo looked up, smile identical. "Back so soon? What is this place?" I demanded. Her smile didn't waver. "It's a diner, sugar." The old man spoke for the first time, his voice like grinding stones. "He knows." He lifted his head. His eyes were milky white, blind. "He sees the cracks." Flo's smile vanished. "You shouldn't have come back." The radio crackled. "Missing trucker, Henry Jacobs. Last seen on Route 17 during the '78 blizzard, Henry Jacobs." That was the old man's name, stitched on his jacket. He'd been here for decades. The lights flickered. The cozy warmth turned to a deep, penetrating cold. Flo's face began to smooth out, her features blurring like a statue melting. "Stay," they both said in unison, a hollow sound that wasn't human. "Stay and keep us company." I bolted, not for the door but for the kitchen, maybe a back exit. The kitchen was a nightmare of rust and decay, crawling with black vines that pulsed. There was no back door, just a wall, and in it, a shimmering vertical pool of darkness. A tear in the world. The diner was a lure, a stomach. I turned. Flo and Henry stood in the doorway, their forms elongating, merging with the shadows of the diner. I had one choice. I ran straight at the shimmering wall through the tear. I stumbled out into the blinding whiteness of the real blizzard, collapsing into a snowdrift. My truck was parked on the shoulder of I-80, a mile from any exit. I was freezing but alive. The state trooper who found me said I was lucky. "Hypothermia causes hallucinations," he said. But in my pocket, soaked and frozen, was a paper diner receipt. The date read, November 11th, 1978. The total, $4.25. The ink was fresh. I don't drive through Wyoming anymore, but I talk to other drivers. Every few years, during a bad blizzard, someone reports seeing a diner's glow off Route 17. They always describe the flickering sign. The nice waitress named Flo. Most keep driving. But I know eventually someone will be desperate enough to stop. And the diner will have a new customer to keep it company. Forever stuck at 11:59. Our final story is the one that haunts me most. Because the driver didn't break any rules. He just took a load. And what was in that trailer wasn't cargo. The offer came through a shadow broker. No company name. A deadhead run from a defunct factory in Lockwood, Michigan, to a private airfield in Nevada. $20,000. Cash. Up front. All they gave me was a trailer number and a rule. Do not open. Do not stop. No matter what you hear. The trailer was a refrigerated unit, but when they hooked it up, my rig's cooler screamed in protest. It was set to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. The broker, a man in a spotless suit who never gave his name, handed me the envelope of cash. His hands were ice cold. The contents are volatile. Biological samples. Very delicate. Any deviation voids your payment and our protection. I didn't like it, but $20,000 would fix my life. I took the load. The first day was quiet. Just the hum of the cooler. On the second night, crossing the Nebraska sandhills, I heard it. A thump. from inside the trailer. A single, solid impact against the walls. I pulled over, heart racing. I listened. Nothing. A shifting load, I told myself. I drove on. An hour later, scratch, scratch, scratch. Like nails on metal. Slow, deliberate. I turned up the radio. It didn't help. Then the CB erupted. Not with voices, but with a low, rhythmic humming. It was coming from my trailer, interfering with the frequency. The humming resolved into a tune. An old lullaby. Rock-a-bye baby. My blood turned to slush. The sounds became my passengers. Knocking in complex patterns. Scraping that moved from wall to wall. Sometimes a wet, sloshing sound, like something moving through thick fluid. The cooler labored constantly, yet frost began to form on the outside of the trailer, intricate fractal patterns that seemed to pulse. Couldn't sleep. I'd close my eyes and hear whispering. Not words, but raw, emotional tones. Sorrow, rage, a hunger so deep it felt ancient. I broke the first part of the rule. I stopped. At a truck stop in Utah, I backed into the most remote spot. I got out with a stethoscope I kept for engine trouble. I pressed it against the trailer wall. The cold burned through the metal. I listened. I heard breathing. Slow, deep, rhythmic. And beneath that, a heartbeat. Not one. Dozens. Overlapping, out of sync. A cacophony of life frozen in the dark. I vomited. This wasn't samples. This was a zoo. Prison. I called the broker's number. Disconnected. I was alone with $20,000 and a nightmare. The final night, in the Nevada desert, my fuel filter clogged. I coasted to a halt near a ghost town called Broken Wheel. No cell service. The sounds from the trailer stopped. The silence was worse. The cooler's hum died. The power was failing. I sat in the absolute dark, the desert cold seeping in. Then, a new sound. A voice. Clear, childlike, coming from the trailer speaker vent. It's so cold in here. Please, let us out. My hand was on the door release. The rule echoed, do not open. But that was a child. We're so hungry. Another voice older joined in. Then a chorus, pleading, sobbing. Human voices. What had I been hauling? Prisoners? Experiments? My morality warred with the broker's warning. I grabbed my flashlight and crowbar. I approached the rear doors. The frost had formed a solid, beautiful sheet. I raised the crowbar. The voices fell silent. Then one voice, deep and distorted, spoke through the others. Fool, you are the delivery, not the savior. The trailer doors buckled outward with a deafening boom, as if something massive had thrown itself against them. The metal screamed. I fell back. The doors held, but now they were bowed. From the vent, a black, viscous liquid began to seep, smoking as it hit the sand. The voices laughed. A unified, horrific sound. They weren't prisoners. They were the jailers. And I was bringing them home.